as some of you guys probably know, recently I've done 2 open gardens raising money for the WWF. One of the main questions I was asked was, how did it all start? You know, how did this fascination and obsession, some people like to call it, how did it all start? Where did it come from? So I'm going to try and explain in as much detail as possible, but as quickly as possible for the benefit of you guys, how it all began. So we went from this, I think that would work, to this in just 5 years. Okay, so my collection first started with, probably like a lot of you guys, the hardy Musabastu. It went on from there to an Insete, then it was various ferns, blah blah blah. But because we were in a rented property, it meant that I knew that I wouldn't be able to take the plants or some of the plants with me if I planted them in the ground. So the collection was based in pots, which was fine. You know, we had ducks at the time, so it kept the ducks away from eating the smaller plants. We'll get onto them later. Yeah, so basically when we moved there and I had the chance to buy my own house, my brother Ollie, as you guys have probably seen, we rented a huge van and we absolutely stacked it full with all the plants and the pots. He won't thank me for that at all. But we did it. We got it over to this place here where I'm at now, which was just a lawn. This was an old pub. I think it was built late 40s, early 50s, something like that. It was only a pub for 7 or 8 years and then it was turned into residential housing. So it was pretty much left how you'd imagine a pub to be, a 360 garden, just lawn and not much else, to be fair. There wasn't one plant in the garden when we took over. The lawn was just in a dire state. It wasn't even a lawn, you couldn't even class it as a lawn really. But because we took the ducks from the old place, we tried to house them here. It just wasn't working. I mean, every time I tried to put a plant in, you know, plant something small, the ducks would just decimate everything and they would just turn in what was lawn just into mud, and it was starting to smell. They were noisy, so unfortunately they had to go. But once they were rehomed, it meant that I could start to plant out the jungle, how you could kind of think where you wanted things to go. Now we started just by putting Fatsias. I think the Musabastu went in as well, so it was more the hardier type of plants, some more evergreens. There was a couple of bamboos that were dotted around. They went in without root barriers, which 2 years later I started to regret. So a lot of those had to be dug up. We then put root barriers in, the bamboo went back in, and they're fine now. They haven't escaped, fingers crossed. But yeah, it started with the cheaper plants, the easier plants and the hardier plants. But it wasn't long before it started to take shape and start to, you know, you could see what it was going to potentially end up like. Now, once a lot of the plants had gone in, it was kind of missing something. You know, it was starting to look good. You could understand what it could be, but there was something missing. So I did various trips I went to the Eden Project and we went to Great Dixter. Now, Great Dixter, I don't know if you guys have ever been, it's got various different gardens. It's a huge old, I think it's a Tudor estate, but they've got what was a rose garden and they've converted it into a tropical rainforest style garden. So we went there and it was that place and that afternoon where I went into that garden, that was the kickstart, and it kind of gave me that kick up the arse to see what my garden was missing and what it needed as well. So the first thing I did was worked out where I was going to put the boardwalk. So we had a shed. You've probably seen some of the photos. I'll put some photos up. There was a shed at the back of the garden. So I made a decking area off that and we had a canopy and turned it into a shack stroke bar, which was, again, a nice addition. It was starting to look good, but it was still missing something. So again, we added on to that with the boardwalk. And it was when the boardwalk went in, you could kind of see that the garden was being broken up into different areas. And with Great Dixter, when you enter their garden, you can hardly see what's around the next bend. There's things you have to fight through. You know, there's leaves in your face, you're getting poked in the eyes. It's great, but it's what my garden was missing. So over the next year or two, we started adding in more and more plants that you thought probably shouldn't fit there, and you know, wouldn't fit, but we gave it a go anyway. Some worked, some didn't. Some looked really great, some didn't. But you know, that's the joys of gardening. Once the boardwalks had gone in, we decided to add the swamp pond, what I call the swamp pond, which is just a wildlife pond. There's no filtration or anything like that at all, no pumps, because we've already got the koi pond. So you know, I could enjoy the koi pond in a different area of the garden, but it didn't stop the frogs and the newts trying to get into the koi pond. But that's another story. But yeah, once the swamp pond went in, the wildlife started to, you know, arrive. We had slow worms, toads, frogs, newts. We had a kingfisher at one point, dragonflies. Yeah, so it's not just the plants, it needs water. So that was that. Another season went by, and every year that went on, the garden got bigger and bigger and bigger. But where we'd planted plants like fatsias, hebes, shrub type plants, where they'd started off quite small, it now meant they were getting to their size of like, you know, 6, 7, 8 foot, and it meant I now had a whole new garden and a whole new space to now underplant, which was great, but it basically meant, well, it felt like I had to start the garden again. You know, you suddenly had all this space to fill again, and the garden didn't look as lush, although you had the canopy, which was great. It was looking bare again. So again, we spent another year putting all the more plants in, changing things around a bit. Yeah, and we were finally starting to see where it needed to go. Now, this year has been the year that is really, you know, taken off for the garden. The canopy's where it needs to be. The underplanting, I think, is where it needs to be. There's a few more things I need to change and will change. You know, garden's never finished. But yeah, and I think adding the houseplants as well. Again, at Great Dickster, we found that they were introducing houseplants through the summer months, which kind of really gave it that tropical, subtropical feeling, which you can't get from hardy plants. You know, you can get that, the look, you know, there's similarities, but to get that real finish, it needed the houseplants. So it meant going to various garden centres trying to get houseplants, but again, it needed to be the right houseplants because it had to look good. It had to suit the garden and where the garden was at that time. But yeah, I'm happy with where it's at. You know, in 5 years, going from lawn to a miniature rainforest, a jungle garden, however you want to put it, I think it's pretty good going, you know. But the thing I found was once we'd figured out where the canopy was and we figured out the underplanting and what to do with the houseplants, we started spending a lot more time out there in the evenings. But it was just dark, as you can imagine. There was no lighting or anything like that. So again, it meant more research, more reading up, more looking at images, thousands of images, thousands of late nights. But we settled on lighting the perimeter of the jungle garden and where the boardwalks are, you know, light it, low level lighting. We didn't want it too bright because we didn't want to take away the effect, but then we still wanted to see where we were walking. So yeah, we lit the perimeter, and it kind of, being out in a garden at night time, it encloses it completely. You lose the houses at the back. You obviously can't see the sky because it's pitch black. All the shadows and all the gaps in the plants disappear and close in on you. So whatever's illuminated is in your face, and it took on a whole new level and a whole new meaning. So I mean, I loved it so much so that we decided to, after the first open garden fundraiser, which we did for the WWF, we decided to risk an evening one. Now, again, it brought in a whole new set of challenges. Basically, the garden's the garden's risky as it is. There's a lot of foliage going on. There's a lot of things you can trip over and, you know, poke your eye out on. But to do it in the dark meant it was even more precarious. So we added a few more extra lights. I got some cheapy flame lights and things like that, just to mark where the paths were, and it kind of worked. Yeah, I was happy with it. So we're going to leave those there for, you know, the end of the summer and see where we go with those. So yeah, I'm super happy with where the garden's gone in 5 years. Like I say, if there's one thing I can say to you guys, and one bit of advice I can give is just be brave. If you've got a lawn and you've got plants and bedding and the flower beds around the outside, take a bit out of the middle. Make a boardwalk at a funny angle and plant a big plant that shouldn't be there. It's taking these chances and taking these risks, as it were, that's paid off for me, definitely. Like I say, with Great Dixter, they've pushed boundaries, huge plants which have absolutely no right to be where they are, but it really does work. And if something gets too big, you can dig it up, you can move it, you can chop it back. Most of the big leaf tropicals, like the paulownias, the catalpas and things like that, they can be coppiced and pollarded, so you haven't really got to worry about these things getting too big, because you can maintain. Even the eucalyptus, I wouldn't advise planting the eucalyptus in a small garden, even though I have. But yeah, they can be cut right back and maintained to a point. So just give everything a go. If you've got a chance of getting a plant and you're umming and ahhing about it, just get it. It's going to be fine. And if it's not, sell it or cut it down, or I don't know, deal with it. But yeah, be brave. Anyway, I'm going to leave you guys with some more photos of the progress and how we got from start to finish in the jungle garden. Thanks again for tuning in, guys. We'll see you in the next one.